talking about how to stop sex predators and whether we should treat them or throw them in jail and just throw away the key too. Just before we left, Sherry, you were talking about measures that you would take in terms of punishment for sex offenders, and I just want you to reiterate, talk a little bit more to me about what you think should be done. Is it enough that they serve on... If you're going to be in the New York area and would like free tickets to Rolonda, please call us at 212-650-2060. We've been having a discussion today about how to stop sex predators and whether we should treat them or just throw them all in jail and throw away the key too. Before we left, we were speaking with Sherry, a survivor of rape. And one of the things that you were saying is about what we should do in terms of punishment for sex offenders. What do you think should happen?
Well, you know, I would love it if we had a cure, if there was treatment that we knew worked, where they didn't have to take medication, because if they stop the medication, then that's the end of that. So in the meantime, until we have that research developed and we know what we're doing, let's just put them away. I mean, there's no other answer to me. The average rapist, you said 5.5 years, it's 3 years. That's what the average rapist will serve. It takes a rape victim much longer than 3 years on average to get through the experience, to incorporate it, to get on with her or his life. Because it's something that stays with you for the rest of your life.
Very briefly, if you could, just so we understand what you have survived. What exactly happened to you, if you could?
Sure. I was driving my car got stuck, a mechanic stopped to help me. I mean, this is somebody that you would trust. And that's really how I became a rape victim. He had a knife to my throat, sodomized me, a couple other things, and then let me go. I was fortunate. I was not, I mean, he didn't use the knife. I got away. I got away. He let me get away. I got the help that I needed. The police were very, very supportive of me.
And when it would be so easy for you to call yourself a victim, why do you say, well, no way, I'm a survivor, and you just...
Well, you know what? In some cases, I do say that I'm a victim because that's real. People understand that word. On the other hand, I'm so far past it because it was 8 years ago that this happened to me. But there are lasting images. I still have a startle reflex. I don't do certain things. I take many more precautions. I didn't drive a car for 3 years. I gave up my car, and it was only when I absolutely needed to have one again that I got my license back. I was in an elevator recently. Somebody was taking me down on a freight elevator, and he shut the light and then opened the door on the ground floor. I thought I would have a heart attack. I walked out of there like this, and all of that goes back. That's not who I was before this.
My next two guests have been frontline participants in the criminal justice system. I want you to meet Willis Miller. He's Assistant District Attorney for the Special Victims Bureau here in Queens, New York. He says that sex criminals rarely change their orientation. I also want you to meet Jack Furlong. He is a lawyer who says that sex offenders are still human beings, and they deserve a chance to be rehabilitated. Please welcome both gentlemen. The laws. Is it true that it's only like 3 years to 5 years that someone on an average serves?
When I heard that, I was thinking how happy I would be to get 5 years on a lot of my cases.
Yeah.
I think when you prosecute in a big city where the crush of crime is really heavy, that sex crimes often get a short shrift in sentencing, and a lot of the focus is paid to armed robbers and murderers or people with guns. And
but
the
why?
sex offenders. Well, I think a lot of the times that in most of my cases, the sex offenses take place within the family unit, and judges or people in the system that aren't as sensitive to what sex crimes victims go through often use that as a mitigating factor, as though if your father sexually abuses you, it's somehow less important than if a stranger sexually abuses you, when in fact it can be much more devastating to the victim.
Frank, what were you? Yeah, you had a real reaction to that, and I just wanted to...
It's very, very devastating when it happens to somebody in the family, when it's somebody you love and somebody you trust. And you know, it's what this is this you got to keep in mind, this rehabilitation stuff, is that this is a crime. If somebody robbed 50 banks, like Michael molested 50 kids, that guy would be in jail for the rest of his life. Come on. But since this is a sex crime, suddenly we're all talking about rehabilitation, and what about the poor offender?
But Willis, do you believe in rehabilitation?
I believe that in child sex offense cases where you have somebody who's basically nonviolent, is willing to admit what they've done and feels very sorry for it, there's a chance through new rehabilitation techniques that they may be able to control their urges in the future. They will not be able to eliminate them. They will not become a non-pedophile. It's something that they'll have to fight with for the rest of their life. Finding somebody with that level of motivation to change is rare, because your average sex offender can't even admit, even when I had a case where somebody was videotaped committing the abuse, and when he came into court, he could not admit before the judge what he had done. He concocted a tale by which a 5-year-old seduced him, led him off a couch, forced him to engage in the behavior. But I was convinced by the end of it that he genuinely believed it at that point. So once he's crossed that brink of reality, how do you rehabilitate somebody?
Now, Furlong, you represent people like this. What do you, I mean, and you believe that people can be rehabilitated. What is your argument when you have a case like that? I mean, what is your...
Well, I mean, I start with a proposition. It's not a popularity contest. I grant you that.
Yeah.
Thank you. But I'm sitting here listening to Willis say, yeah, you know, I mean, murderers, and they're not nearly as serious as sex offenders. I like to think that there's a hierarchy that's set by the legislature. If you kill somebody, that person's going to be very upset. See, that person should be going away for the rest of his life. If you put a gun to somebody's head, well, that's pretty serious, especially if you shoot them and they survive the act. But what Willis is talking about, I think when we're talking about child sex offenders, people who are violated, a crime is committed. If the person is proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, the person has to be punished. But in the scheme of things, that person should not be in jail longer, in my judgment, than someone who kills somebody.
I think it's absurd. When somebody commits a crime of that nature, when somebody sexually assaults a child, it's much more damaging to that child than if somebody just holds a gun on somebody. Or much more damaging if somebody robs a bank.
We will continue this conversation, because I can tell it's heating up right after this.